Welcome back. I'm Shelby Coates, and Jay Davis joins us from James W. Davis and Associates for It's the Law. Good evening.
Hey, Shelby.
Happy to have you again. Now, Georgia election leaders face a new federal lawsuit over the state's newly signed election reform laws. This one claims that the new laws threaten voting rights, freedom of speech, and the separation of powers. So, Jay, first, if you could explain who filed this lawsuit and why.
Well, there's actually seven different lawsuits going on right now. One is filed by the Coalition for Good Governance, is what they're called, and they've had several suits during last year trying to do some things. Other by the NAACP, the AME Methodist Church. So there's different, mostly left-leaning organizations. Some of them that are predominantly trying to designed to protect racial issues from blacks being underserved in these certain communities.
All right. So where does, with the most recent lawsuit, where does the freedom of speech and separation of powers argument come in? Can you break that down for us?
Well, there's a little bit of separation in powers because what they want to do is they want the state board of elections to be able to go into the county board of elections and to remove them if they're not doing what they're supposed to or are not complying with certain laws. So generally, a county has a right, an independent right, and they can do as they wish. But when the integrity of elections are at stake, it may come into a statewide issue under the Georgia Constitution, or actually even a federal issue to make sure that the individual rights of the citizens in that particular county are protected against improper actions. So how they go about doing that can cause a conflict between the separation of powers.
It takes us back to a social studies class.
Yeah.
Government. My last question then is they want the laws, a portion of the laws, to be declared unconstitutional so the state does not have to enforce it. What does that process look like?
Well, basically, proving something unconstitutional is just being able to state the portion of the Constitution that is being offended, and then giving laws to show whether or not, in fact, it is. So in this case, freedom of speech is going to be a protected right. So how they're going to say that freedom of speech is being violated is where they're going to have to hit, and what laws have been decided prior that govern that. For example, some of the groups want to bring in food and water to the voting lines, and these are groups that have a particular political agenda. The law wants to be able to make them not be able to come within 150 feet of those so that they don't speak or have their voice heard in that period of time. So there's a circumference around the voting line that is actually prohibits other people trying to influence, and that is a prohibition of some freedom of speech. So what are the courts going to allow to be able to protect their freedom of speech at what distance?
Alrighty, Jay. Well, thank you so much for breaking that down for us, and we'll of course have to wait and see what happens.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you later, Shelby. Thank you.